Welcome back to the podcast. We're going through why you are self-sabotaging and plateauing in your life, from business to relationships to your health to your relationships, everything. Why you're plateauing and self-sabotaging, why it's happening, and what you can do to overcome it. So I'm going to rip straight into it. The only favor I ask is if you like this video, subscribe to help the channel grow. The bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests get, which obviously helps everyone out. So thank you so much for liking the video, subscribe as well, and leave your biggest takeaways in the comments below. So what I'm going to start with is a rule that most people who have done any form of self-development have probably heard of. It's called the 80-20 rule. It's called Pareto's law. Essentially the law states that 20% of your actions will give you 80% of your results. Let's use health and fitness as an example. So a lot of people are so crazy with biohacking. They're like, you need to have the best sleep, you need to have all the green juices, you need to have the red light saunas, you need to have the stretching, the mobility, all these supplements, and all this blah, 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 blah. If you do not exercise and eat relatively healthy, which would be the 20%, because if you do those two things, it will give you 80% of your result. It's like people who eat terrible food, don't move their body, and they think taking some supplements is going to solve their problems. It's not going to, because the 20% that gives you 80% of the result. And it applies to literally every area of your life. In business, depending on the phase of business that you're in, I'll use the startup stage of a business. When you're just starting up a business, majority of your time needs to go into making your product better and marketing and sales. If you're spending, that would be the 20%, that would give you 80% of the results. If you are in startup land of business and you're focusing on HR, systems, processes, and branding, and all these things which are important long-term, but they're not important now, then you're not going to get the results. You need to figure out what's the 20% that's going to give you the biggest return. Now, in life, this applies across the board in every area of life. Success is 80% mindset, 20% skills. So 80% of success comes from your psychology. 20% comes from the skill sets that you have. Let me use an example. Health and fitness again. Is this skill set, the strategy of how to be fit and healthy, relatively fit and healthy? Like, you're not like, I don't know what the average health measurements are, but to be in the average category of being healthy, is the skill and strategy of how to do that so fucking complicated that no one can fucking figure it out? No. Move your body, go to the gym 3 to 5 times, if not every day of the week. Drink some water, stop drinking soft drinks, eat some organic, healthy food, stop eating McDonald's, get some decent sleep. It's not fucking complicated. But how many people struggle with it? Like, I don't know the rates on obesity, if anyone wants to comment that down below, but I know the health measurements for majority of countries is getting worse. Obesity is terrible. Health measurements and markers are so bad. But the skills are so easy. Why do so many people struggle with it? Because they don't have the mindset piece to go along with it. So my invitation to you is, if you're plateauing right now, yes, you do need skills. Don't take this to the extreme and never work on your skill sets. I'm always working on my skill sets. I just came from a 7-day event where I'm working on the skill sets for my business, but at the same time, I'm working on myself. I'm working on my mindset as well. So if you're plateauing in life, and I want to, maybe an exercise you can do right now is ask yourself, where am I plateauing in my life? Is it relationships? Is it business? Is it your health? Is it your finances? Is it your parenting? Is it your friendships? What areas of life are you plateauing in right now? And ask yourself, what am I missing? Am I missing the skills? Because again, if you have no skills, then you're fucked as well. You need both. But it's more important to get the psychology. Because if you have the right psychology, you'll do whatever it fucking takes to find the skill set. Do you know anyone, and maybe you've done it yourself, where you've started a goal, you're like, I'm going to achieve whatever it may be, business, health, whatever it is, and then you don't succeed, you fail, and you give up? That's not a skill set. That's a mindset. Because it works. If someone else has achieved it, bearing some abnormal circumstances, you can achieve it too. You just need to keep trying until you find the right strategy that can get you there. But if you don't have the psychology to do that, you'll just give up, throw the towel in and say, fuck, I just can't do this. I'm not meant to be successful. So that's the sort of big piece. That's the big chunk. Let's chunk it down a little bit. So how do you start to work on it? It's a good question. First thing I start with when I work with anyone is values. And I'm not going to go into that because I talk about values all the time. Values are the foundation of who you are, what's meaningful to you, what inspires you, what drives you. I just did a training last night for a team, and we went through that the need for motivation is a symptom of an uninspired goal. So if you're not even taking action towards fixing your fucking goals or chasing your goals or pursuing stuff that's meaningful to you, and you're lacking motivation, you just don't know what your purpose is. You don't know what your values are. You don't know what intrinsically drives you to get going. So that's where I start with everyone. I've got a free training on my podcast, episode 200, and I'll go through your values. And I also do that inside my conscious community. I'll get to that later. So I would start with your values. So what are your values? What's your purpose? What's your mission? What's your vision? That's self-mastery for me. That's knowing who the fuck you truly are, what lights your soul on fire, so you've got a fuel source to go out and take the action needed. But that's just the first step. The next layer that I would lean into and help you with and recommend you start looking into yourself is your beliefs. There's a cliche exercise that a lot of self-development events do, and I'll do it now with you guys. Don't do this if you're driving because you can't do this. So if you're able to do this and close your eyes, do this exercise. So I want you right now, look around your room, wherever you're sitting, wherever you're listening to this right now, look around your room or wherever you are for the color red. The color red. Just look around, look up, look down. Look over here. I've got this, if you're watching the video, I've got this little mushroom, that's red. I've got this book, that's red. There's red here, there's red here. Fantastic. Now, I want you to close your eyes. And I want you to think of everything that was blue. Now, I want you to open your eyes. Now, look for blue now. Look for blue. Look for blue. Look for blue. I'm seeing blue here. I got blue here. Got blue here. Got blue here. Beautiful. Did you see more blue the second time? You would have. The answer would be yes. Why? Because you're looking for it. Obviously, you find what you're looking for, obviously. But this is the sneaky part, and this is why it's so important to work on yourself, is that you'll find things that are kind of red and call them red to confirm the belief that you have. You'll find things that are kind of blue, call them blue to be successful. And how does this play out in your life? Let's use relationships. If you believe all men are assholes or all women are assholes, guess what type of relationships you're going to attract? If you believe that you're broken and you're a loser and you're a piece of shit and you're not worthy of success, you're going to find things to confirm that. Let's use an example. You believe you're not lovable and you're not worthy because you have past trauma and wounds and shit you haven't worked through and healed through yet. Then you get into a relationship and they do something and the relationship just doesn't work for whatever reason. You will find that that was because you're not worthy. That's your fault. It's because you're not lovable. You have a confirmation bias, which confirms the beliefs that you have. You always make your beliefs true. It's that cliche quote again. If you believe you can or if you believe you can't, you're right. So if you believe you're not worthy of success, you're a loser, you're ugly, you're fat, you're not lovable, you don't deserve love, you don't deserve money, you're not worthy of money, or whatever beliefs you have, and we all have our set of beliefs, you're always going to make them true. And that's the glass ceiling most people are fighting against. You're trying to get strategies to break through subconscious and mental glass ceilings. You can see the fallacy and the mirage that is. You're just always trying to fix something with something that's not going to fix it. It's very fucking frustrating. And I've been there myself. That's why it's so important to work on the 80%, which is your mindset. So I would really dig into your beliefs. What beliefs do you have that aren't true? And it's hard to identify this. It's hard to see the forest through the trees. That's why it's important to have like a coach or a mentor or a therapist or someone to support you and actually challenge you on your beliefs. I've had many, many conversations where I'm having like a coaching session or I'm just having a conversation with a friend and they'll say something and they're not even aware that they said it. And I'll say, hey, can you repeat what you just said really slowly? And it might be like, I'm not worthy of this. Interesting. When did you decide that? When did you download that belief? And then I'll go through like a coaching process and obviously dissolve it. So first, values, purpose, mission, vision. That's your self-mastery piece. Then second, let's start to remove all the bullshit that's not there. So let's remove those beliefs. So that's what I recommend you doing. And then this sort of ties into the second point I just said, but you just want to be aware of your shadows. So a lot of people talk about shadow work. I don't really use the term shadow work too much, but it's the same thing. Think of shadows as coping mechanisms, as survival trauma responses. So again, say you've got a fear or a wound of not being enough, you might overcompensate from that and try to achieve everything, accumulate everything, chase status, chase money, chase achievements to prove to yourself and to fill that void and wound and have a coping mechanism, and it'll be a shadow of yours that you're always having to achieve things to be loved and to be enough. Again, it's a very deadly little cycle that you can get into. I don't recommend it. So what I'll be recommending you to do is to find and be aware of what are your wounds and coping strategies? What are your shadows? Like, again, if you don't think that you're enough and you're in a leadership position, you might be a tyrannical leader and a controlling leader and not trust your team because you've got a control shadow where you're controlling everyone and manipulating everyone and suppressing other people, not letting other people speak up and challenge you because you've got a wound that you're not enough. So you need to control everyone. You need to be that type of leader. And your shadows, your coping mechanisms, and your traumatic reactions, they show up in business. They show up, especially in relationships. They show up everywhere. So be really aware of what are your coping strategies? When do you get triggered? I talk about triggers a lot in my content. A trigger is revealing a wound. And when you're triggered, it will also trigger off a coping mechanism. You might disassociate. You might go smoke a cigarette. You might go binge eat food. You might go watch TV. You might go to the gym. And that's going to the gym is a healthier coping strategy, but it's still a coping strategy. Let's heal the wound, and you still want to go to the gym. That's okay. But what's the fuel source behind it, right? So be aware of when you're triggered. Be aware of your coping strategies when you find yourself having to prove yourself. How do you find your own coping strategies? This requires a lot of introspection. It requires a lot of self-awareness, but this is the line that helps me the most. To the degree that you resist reality is the degree that you suffer. So being really in tuned with where you have resistance. So for me, to be vulnerable with you guys, is I've had a lot of wounds around social settings. So I got diagnosed with Asperger's, ADHD, and autism, and I really struggled with communicating and friendships and relationships. Like, how do you communicate, social cues, how to actually have a conversation in a group of people. I was scared as shit to go to birthday parties, and I just really struggled to communicate to groups of people. I really love one-on-one conversations, but groups of people make me uncomfortable. So they used to. I'm working through that. I'm healing through that because I'm working through that belief. I'm not going to reaffirm that belief, but that's what it used to be. So it still shows up for me. I went and did a podcast yesterday. I was a guest on a podcast show, and I walked in and I met the person, the host of the podcast, and then she's like, "Oh, come meet the team." And I'm like, "Fuck!" And I literally straight away started to feel my heart race. Resistance. I felt the resistance, and that's just feedback to me that there's some more healing to do. Now I'm very aware of it, so I can have my healthier coping strategies where I can actually breathe into it, lean into it, and heal through it. But my invitation for you is, where do you have resistance? Do you have resistance in relationships? Do you have resistance when it comes to leadership, when you're in leadership positions? Do you have resistance when it comes to your finances? Do you have resistance when it comes to being vulnerable? Do you have resistance when it comes to showing up on social media and being authentic and being real? Wherever you have resistance, that's the smoke. Whenever there's smoke, there's fire. So you don't want to fix the smoke, you want to fix the fire, right? This is where I'm not going to go down to, a lot of people solve symptoms, not causes. So the resistance is the smoke. That's your coping strategy. That's your shadow, if you want to use those terms. Then you want to find the fire, which is creating the coping strategy or the shadow, solve or heal or integrate or whatever process you want to do. I've got many processes I can help you with, but you go through fix or heal or integrate the fire, the smoke will go away. And then you'll show up more authentically. You'll show up as your higher self. You will show up as the best version of you. I hope that helped. So focus on the 80-20. 80% is mindset. 80% is your psychology. 80% is who the fuck you are. 20% is skills and strategies. Don't neglect the strategies. Don't ever learn how to market, sell, lead, communicate, set boundaries. You need that as well. But if your foundation of your mindset is fucking terrible, all the skills, you won't use them very well, or you'll do a very shit job, or you won't even use them at all. So go through, figure out your values. I've got a free training on my podcast, episode 200, or you can join my conscious community where I teach you how to do it in a better way, because the community is a lot better than the free online one. Find your purpose, find your mission, find your vision. I teach you how to do that. Then work through beliefs. So dissolve limiting beliefs that are holding you back, because you always make your beliefs true. And then be aware of your coping mechanisms and your shadows and whatever your traumatic reactions are. They're all the same thing, just different words. And then learn to find the fire, the original wound it's compensating from, heal through that so you stop having shadows and coping mechanisms. Those are my tips for you. I hope that helped. Leave your comments below. What do you think of this? Any feedback? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Like and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you're interested in working with me, guys, I do have a conscious community where I teach you guys how to do this step by step. I've got details below of how you can work with me. I offer a money back guarantee on my services. And I love you guys. Thank you for being a part of this. Share this with a friend as well. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye.